Hey, y'all. Good to have you back again. This is part 3 of a 4-part series on marriage and parenting. This is my wife, Selena Weaver.
Hi.
How are you doing, honey?
I'm doing good.
I mean, I saw you earlier today, but
I'm doing
I'll
good.
just ask you if you're doing okay now. Okay, so first 2 in the series we did, I'll do a little bit of review. You can pull them up on the YouTube page or website. First one was tone and volume, teaching. Explain to them quickly, what is tone and volume? When we say that, what do we mean in terms of marriage?
Yeah, so we talked about that it's not meant for building up, it's really for tearing down in terms of tone and volume. And so it is you guys in your marriage partnership figuring out what are triggers and not bypassing those triggers when it comes to tone and volume, because usually you're never going to get anywhere with escalated tone and volume.
Okay, excellent. We do practicums each one of these podcasts. We really want to give you things you can do as a tool in your marriage and your parenting. The 2 we covered, the first episode was do-overs, and do-overs is simply you say something stupid, you do something stupid. Men, women, it's your responsibility to say, can we do a do-over? And then those of you that something has been done stupid in your presence, you're able to say, yeah. And you back up, you leave the room, you hang up the phone, you recall, and you do it over, right? The second one was hug it out, practicum. What is that?
Yeah, so usually in that scenario, it's kind of, you can do it in whatever order and that you feel comfortable with and safe in, but it is what allows you to reconnect by hugging it out. Like, I mean, the do it over and the hug it out are self-explanatory, but whoever is the offender is the one that requests for a hug it out, to just really kind of like hug it and almost like kind of squeeze the anger and the animosity out and just kind of start over.
And so sometimes how that looks like is if I'm the offender, which has happened a few times this week, if I were to say to you, honey, you want to hug it out? And your response may be,
Reluctantly,
well, come on, hug
okay,
it out.
fine. And so I'll just kind of stand there.
And then I'll hug her until she smiles.
And then, yeah.
We do, and both of us have done that.
Yeah,
So
right.
it's just that reconnection again. Second week, we talked about the teaching, I respect you, in times when things escalate. It's too heavy, too hot to be able to say, because the conversation is not building up, going either way. Hey, I respect you, I love you, but this is not for building up. And when one of you says that, the other one has to stop talking. You can't follow them into the other room. You can't make 2 more points. You must drop it right then and then reconvene later. The practicums we taught were diffuse and disengage. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Can you explain that?
In the moment, yeah, in terms of just kind of diffusing the situation is, I love you, I respect you, and then come up with a plan of action of when you can talk again. So whether it's in an hour, somebody needs to just go take a walk, or whether it's that evening once you put children to bed, because I know that's kind of can be a long day. And once you get that done, then you feel like you have a space to be able to communicate as adults rather than having the interference of children. Of course, any of the arguing and fights need to not be done in front of the children. And then, just kind of diffusing the situation and then re-engaging in a healthy manner.
Yeah, opportunities to pray for your spouse in that break. Also to pray for your own depraved heart, your own issues that you've decided preferentially you need to be your way. All that stuff needs to be broken down. So that leads today into having difficult conversations. Now, some of you that are listening right now, you have difficult conversations about everything. And so I am not encouraging that. I think sometimes when you want that level of difficulty all the time, the issue may be with you. What we're talking about is when there's an offense, when there's a problem, where there's an issue that's hurting your marriage and or potentially hurting your spouse, you have to talk about some difficult things. Now, I think we talked about this first podcast. We've had a number of people in our marriage counseling when we say, how are y'all doing? Or to a couple in the church, or, and either the husband or wife will say something like this: well, we just never argue. Like we just don't do that. And then we know somebody's lying. Okay. Like there's always issues and irritations because we're people. So I want to talk about that a little bit today. Now here's the verse that I'm going to give you, Ephesians 4:29. Here's what it says: "No foul language should come from your mouth, but only what is good for building up." This is what Selena has talked about. Someone in need, so that it gives grace to those who hear. So foul is the word sapros. It literally means putrid. It means turkey carcass. Turkey carcasses smell so bad, do they not?
Like watermelon carcasses.
Watermelon, yeah. When you kill a watermelon, the carcass.
And let it be dead there for a little while.
Why is that?
I don't know.
We should probably ask the award-winning executive producer on set right now, Andrew Wilson. I told you I'd work it in. Why does Andrew not know that? Why do watermelon rinds smell so bad?
I don't know.
It's
There's
weird.
Something chemical.
So here's the deal. When we have language with one another that is painful, that is offensive, that is literally sapros, it hurts our spouse. And I know I've been guilty of this, that in the moment of some arguments, you're trying to hurt your spouse.
Yeah, I
You're
mean,
trying to
you're
lash
pulling out
out to
arsenal.
cause pain, right?
Yeah.
And so, but that doesn't take you anywhere. It doesn't build up, and it doesn't meet somebody's need. Now, the good in this verse right here is the word agathos. It means honorable, agreeable, pleasant. So here's the axiom: you can disagree and still be honorable, agreeable with that person, and pleasant. Disagreeing does not mean you have to be vehement, angry, and demanding. Okay? We're called to give grace, charos, a kindness used to turn people to Christ. So in our disagreeing, our desire should be to help that person see Jesus in us and the situation. Now, is that hard?
It can be in that situation.
It's so hard. It's so hard. So this is where the Holy Spirit has to be present. And Christian, if you are a follower of Jesus Christ, this gifting has been given to you, but you're going to have to ask for it. You're going to have to work on it. And it takes some time. Okay. So are we only allowed to speak positively to one another? The answer is yes. We're called to build up. We are called to build up one another, to build up our children, and build up our marriage. Thoughts on that before we move forward?
Yeah, and I think sometimes it can seem like just the positivity, and I know I've talked about this, is it seems very Pollyanna, very pie in the sky, that it's inauthentic. But positivity can also come with exhortation. So it can be holding somebody accountable.
That's good.
Just done in a healthy manner. It can be discipleship, and it's not just flowers and sunshine. It can be a little bit of a harder conversation. And we see Jesus do this with his disciples.
Yes.
I mean, we even see him call them names, and those are his 12 beloved. And so, but in that, there is a constant state of teaching and loving and exhorting and pushing them towards his Father. And so, yeah.
This is not even in the notes, but something we've both seen in our own marriage, with our children, with other people that we've counseled. If you want your spouse or your children to receive from you when you have to tell them some hard truths, then there should be several chapters of love, care, and mercy with them before that. So if you come from a family, your mom and dad were the ones that are always, don't do this, don't do that, get over here, stop it, listen to me. You probably were in a space where you turned 18 or so, you were gone. And so we don't want your kids to leave. We don't want your spouse to leave. So there should be some real application of love, mercy, and grace in that relationship before the difficult conversation is had. Mm-hmm. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, you've talked about kind of like that you're putting deposits into the bank.
Yeah.
So that when those withdrawal happens, you're not overdrawn, right?
Not overdrawn.
It's not overdraft.
Yeah. Okay. So one purpose of hard conversations is for the marriage, not for the preference of self. One of our counselors said this to us years ago, that if you're arguing preference, you're two 5-year-olds in a fight. Okay, so what you're doing is you're having difficult conversations when there is a person, a thing, a situation, a mindset that is coming between you two in your marriage. So times to have hard conversations and how. And I'll state these, and then I want you to comment on them, honey. And when anything seeks to hurt the marriage relationship, when anything seeks to compromise or hurt or offend or come between you two in the relationship, one of those would be, I'm uncomfortable with this person. Either way. Okay? That's a big one. I'm not sure your job fits with our family's needs. And what Hollywood teaches us is that your career and your career and my career, they're both separate, and that needs to not be touched at all. It does if my work hours are compromising my marriage. It does if Selena's calling or passion is getting in the way of us being connected. Another one, I'm not sure your friend, family member is a positive influence on you, our kids. Which one of those stand out, and what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think we've experienced all of them. I mean, I know I've come to you in marriage and ministry and been like, hey, I'm seeing something as laity
Yep.
about this person, and they make me uncomfortable. They're one person in front of you because you're Pastor Tom, but whenever I see them or behind closed doors, I'm just getting a weird, icky vibe. And so in those difficult conversations, there's a debate in my head and the narrative of like, we've been having a lot of problems. Like we're underwater with babies. Do I bring this up? Because then it's just going to cause an argument. But then staying quiet about it would then lead to a detrimental situation.
Yeah.
That's not good either. So then, how do I bring this? And then in terms of family members, that's a hard piece too, because sometimes you can have a really sensitive situation with a parent, with a sibling, with whatever, and the other spouse is not comfortable. And again, because you're so, let's say just on my side, you're so like enmeshed with that family member, you can't see out into the third party space to like be able to address what maybe you're feeling, the other spouse is feeling. And again, then when do you bring this up? If you're already underwater, you're financially strained, health issues, death in the family, whatever it is, and you're like, I cannot spark another flame to cause another argument, and so then you stay quiet.
Compromise.
Or it becomes explosive and nothing is heard in the explosion because of the whole tone and volume thing. So, yeah.
So one piece that Selena and I have seen in multiple families we've counseled is husband and wife. Now they have kids, and kind of, you can usually handle your crazy aunt or your weird brother or cousin or whatever. And then kids come along. That's a different level of responsibility. And that this man will know that his brother is a problem in the house when he comes to visit. And the wife may say, I don't like it when your brother comes and stays with us. We have kids here now. It's okay for her to say that. And it's his responsibility to recognize the fact that this may be your brother who you still see as 10, but now he's a 30-year-old and he's a problem. He drinks too much, bad language, whatever he's bringing into your home. It is okay for either spouse to say, I'm not comfortable with that person. And it's our responsibility, it's your responsibility to say, okay, allow me to see this through the marriage lens, not the personal, this is my brother, this is my sister lens, but what's best for our family. Definitely the first year we were in ministry, you came to me at the end and said, hey, there's a problem. And I was thinking at that moment, I'm not looking at porn, I'm not drinking too much, I'm working all the time, I'm a pastor now. What is the problem? And Selena said, the ministry is the problem. That the ministry has become the other woman. That I spent all my time, every dinner we had, I talked about ministry.
Or answering phones.
My phone was never off. I stepped away from the table constantly. And I hadn't been taught, but it was my responsibility. And that was a game-changing moment. So if your work is getting in the way of your marriage, get another job. If your extended family is a problem, then remove them. Who your kids need are you. All right? That even comes to some of your parents. Well, they're the grandparents. We can't tell them no. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Your kids need you to be their covering spiritually, emotionally, and physically. And we've seen those lines compromised in our own families, in other people's, in a very hard way. So this is where we have these critical, hard conversations. And they're not easy. Number two, when anything stands in the way of growth and integrity building of the marriage relationship. A couple of examples. Anything damaging the marriage relationship. Guys, and I don't, well, I'll tell you what it was for me. Right before we left the Valley, I was working on my blue belt in jiu-jitsu, and I was training 5 days a week. I would come home at 9 o'clock every day. And there's nothing wrong with jiu-jitsu. I love it. The problem is that I was taking away from family time to do something I wanted to do. And Selena held me accountable on that, and it was a good thing. So we moved up here. So you don't have to stop doing something. You just have to figure out how it does not hurt your family. So guys, if some of y'all are playing golf all day Saturday and you've been gone all week, you're compromising your family right now. You are. And if you're asking right now, when do I play golf? When your kids are older. That's when you play golf. Kids are important. Any thoughts about that one right there? When anything stands in the way, another one would be your mindset preferences are primary. Your political affiliation, what you feel about, whether you're a progressive or hardcore conservative, like whatever, your thing, it dominates the family. And the last one would be you don't apologize, you don't forgive, you don't listen. It's your way or the highway. Any of those stand out to you?
Yeah, I think it's, we were talking about this morning, that I think that sometimes there's a mindset that happens with, family of origin. And so with that upbringing, that's kind of what you carry into your marriage and into your parenting, really. And so it's about, this is how I grew up. This is what I saw my dad do. This is what I saw my mom do or not do. And it's more about your comfortability. And so in this, it really becomes how can I undo a lot of trauma history, a lot of generational curses and things and mindsets that you can't copy paste it. It just doesn't work that way. And so, and again, with your children, for those of you that have children, you realize same DNA, they're all very vastly different. Even if they're twins, they're different.
Yes.
And so it can't be copy paste either with discipline or whatever. There are some things that are non-negotiables, but you do have to catch those nuances and all that kind of stuff. And so in your marriage as well, you really do have to listen. And so it's more about like, I never saw my dad apologize to my mom. Well, you know what? That's not a good thing. So learn how to do it in your marriage. Or I never saw, my mom was strong, resilient, like go-getter, like, and that's great. That's amazing that she did that. But at the same token, it can't be copy-paste. So then is that thriving and nourishing to your marriage and your home environment?
I love it. I would add one thing to that. Yeah, if your standard, like Selena talked about, is where you came from, and so you're doing 2 degrees better, you're lazy. Like we talked about this morning also, that your goal in your marriage and with your children, you should constantly be putting all the pieces on the table and re-examining everything all the time. Am I listening? Is there enough quality time spent? Do I say I'm sorry to my spouse, to my kids, to my spouse in front of my kids when I'm wrong? Is my tone and volume too high? The standard is not, well, I'm doing better than my dad, doing better than my mom. You're lazy if that's your response, and it's going to bite you in the rear. I promise you. Your kids will say, well, then if mom and dad just leveled up 1, all I have to do is level up 1. And where the real goal and focus is, as God loves us, we're called to love. And so that is a constant dynamic thing. It's not static. You don't just check the box every morning. It's waking up like, how can I love my wife? How long was our conversation there? We woke up, rolled over. We just hung out and talked for like an hour.
Yeah, it was about an hour.
And those are super solid times. And we do that pretty regularly now that we don't have little monkeys running around at 5 a.m. in the morning. Yeah. So they can make their own breakfast. They made breakfast nachos for us this morning. It was fantastic. But we talked for like an hour. And that's really solid time. And we're trying to figure out, where are we missing it? Where did we drop the ball? Where did we say the wrong thing? And how can we level that up for our kids? So the platform set for your kids and our kids is not, well, I just got to do better than mom and dad. Like, no, it's for the rest of your life growth in terms of Jesus loves me, I love others. Jesus forgives me, I forgive others. Jesus is merciful to me, I show mercy to others. Again, purpose of hard conversation is for the marriage, never for the preference of self. So what would be some, I've got some here. You just get them on your list too. What would be some examples of preference that we've seen, that we've experienced ourselves? They're not things you want to argue over.
In terms of self-preference, yeah, it's like I want to watch the show.
Yes.
And so it's more of like bringing the person to an environment. And so for me, I've always watched, well, I watched Friends. You did too.
So
kind
good.
of brought that into
We've
the
watched
environment.
it too, like multiple times.
The Bachelor was one. That's not your favorite. Rom-coms are not your favorite.
For the record, so the Emmy Award-winning Alex Wilson will also hear me say, I would never watch The Bachelor by myself,
But
but I watch it with you.
But yeah, you come into that space with me. And like jujitsu was not my thing, but we would watch like several UFC fights through several years.
And you would come to some of my competitions.
I came and
and
you can hear me
yell.
screaming.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
so like and entered into that space with you. Occasionally you've popped by the back whenever there's Zumba going on. And so you'll be in
Yeah.
the back and you'll just kind of do your little bitty bitty bum bum and then you'll leave
Because I want you to see me
supporting.
saying what you're doing is awesome.
Right. Yeah.
Another one is restaurants. I'll speak to you men about it, ladies. I'm just going to speak to the men. If you're adamant about where you need to go out to eat with the family or on date night, you're being a jerk, okay? Who cares? Like, get in the car and ask your wife or kids, where do y'all want to go to eat? And then if they don't make up their mind, right,
Yes.
then I say, we're going to Chili's.
Yeah.
And we go to Chili's, but just preferentially, don't drive a flag in the hill and say this is what we have to do. We must eat here. All my friends have this.
The Keeping Up with the Joneses, yeah.
Why don't we get to do what others do? Being a ministry family, we have not.
We got over that a long time ago.
Golly, we just do not do the big things that a lot of people our age do because 30s, 40s is usually where you make all your money. Okay, so here's the practicum for today. Marriage meetup. We started this.
Probably like a decade ago.
Yeah, are you serious? Was it that long ago? Holy cow. Okay, so this is not something you have to do all the time. Right now, we're not doing it. We may start it up in the future
Yeah.
again.
But it's been only maybe a year that we kind of
Is it about a year
downshifted.
taking a detente from it? It's not the golden calf that you have to keep, but it is a valuable tool that you can pull out of your toolbox every now and then and say, for this season in our life, we need to do this. So explain the marriage meetup.
Yeah, so I think that was the encouragement. And I don't know what season everyone is in, but we were just having so many pop-up arguments. And if we think about it, a decade ago, we had an 11-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a
cow.
5-year-old. And we had started like, that was like we were at redlining. And you don't want to do this when you're redlining. So learn from our mistakes that you have to do it like maintenance on your car, tune-ups, oil changes, all that kind of stuff. You don't do that when you do it when the car is redlining, but by that time the damage has already been done.
And very expensive.
And expensive, right? And so it is finding a time. What we were told is find a time whenever, the girls or your children are occupied, that maybe they're out of town or visiting family members, grandparents have them for a Mimi weekend, whatever. But most of the time we didn't have that. So the girls were in the house, they were just occupied. And so we would find an isolated space. And sometimes it was in the car, in the driveway,
Yep.
with the air conditioning on. Sometimes it was in our, in a room. You do want to have a consistent space and a consistent time. And I think at that time it was like Thursdays at like 5 p.m.
Yeah.
for a long time.
You get home from school, take a little break, something to drink. We'd sit down at 5.
Right. And so in that time, the girls were in school if they were 11, 8, and 5, and they were exhausted too. So they wanted their brain break and have a snack and watch their shows. So, and it was, you got 30 minutes, I got 30 minutes. That was the designated time. And sometimes in those scenarios, we needed to be a little more giving because, and you probably more so than me, would give me the full time. And then sometimes it needed to be you. But the majority needed to be, and it needed to be respected, is the 30 minutes and 30 minutes to be able to share, hey, these are my hurts. And so you would go from Thursday to Thursday. Well, inevitably, you would do something that would hurt my feelings Friday morning
Me?
at 9 a.m.
After the marriage meetup, the previous?
Yes.
We already cleared the board.
And so the thing is, we went through the whole thing. Yeah, like you said, cleared the board. And you would offend me.
Hugged it out.
We hugged it out. We did the things. We had a Thursday night dinner with the girls.
Yeah.
We would get ready for school the next day. And inevitably, either you would offend me or I would offend you. And so then I was like, crap, I'm going to have to wait a full week to come back to this. And so I ended up, and I know you did too. I think you actually helped me with that because I would start taking notes on my app, or I actually started taking physical notes on a pad and realizing, okay, if I wait out a week, there are going to be some things on that list that I'm just going to cross out because I don't want to do it. Or you've offended me so much more than that thing by like Wednesday that I was like, I'm not going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about this. And then we would only make sure that we were keeping it to like 2 to 3 topics, no more than 3, because we just don't have mental capacity to hold on to like 15 things on the list.
You do.
I did, and
I
that wasn't
don't.
fair to you.
Yeah.
And so it was, it was 3 things.
Just the truth.
It was like 3 things that I would say, like,
Yeah.
he hurt my feelings. And it was a time date stamp too. It was
Yeah.
like at 9 a.m. on Friday, you texted me this and it really hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
And then on Monday afternoon when I got home from school and you said something to me in front of the girls and I felt really disrespected because you did it in front of them. And that's all I got. And I have other little things, but I'm going to let it go. Because I really want to cover these 2 things because it involves respect, and that's really big to me. And so then we would meet Thursday again at 5:00, and we would and that 30 minutes would be mine.
And since you had that static time to do the marriage meetup, you also have, and it did happen sometimes on Friday. Offense would happen either way.
Yeah, no, I did it too.
And then you have 6 or 7 days to really think about that and pray about it. And the emotions come down, like Selena said. Then you may get to Wednesday, the day before marriage meetup. You're like, I don't need to talk about that. Maybe
I'll
I
let it go,
responded poorly, or
Yeah.
it's not a big deal. And there's bigger. You prioritize.
You did. Yeah,
These
it
2,
really
3.
like putting it on the list made it.
Yeah.
It categorized it.
So I do remember once. I think I was already up here working for Mission. You were still in McAllen, and our marriage meetup during that juncture was like Wednesday 7 or something like that. And I asked you on Monday, I said, are we going to do marriage meetup on Wednesday? And you're like, oh, yeah,
Oh.
we're doing marriage meetup
Yeah,
on
we
Wednesday.
are.
I'm like, yeah, we are. We're doing marriage meetup on Wednesday. And then 2 days
We almost
later.
got into an argument about the marriage meetup.
I know we're not supposed to argue right now because it's not marriage meetup yet, but we're going to have that meeting.
Yeah.
And I remember one of them that I was adamantly, I need to bring it up. The Lord had completely wiped it away in 2 days. And other things came up. So 2 to 3, keep it on the list, keep it simple. This is where the tone and volume practicum is so valuable, because if I'm raising my voice in that moment to Selena, or Selena's raising her voice to me, we're not listening anymore. And then you're just ready to throw down. So the person is raising their voice and they're getting adamant with you. You're like, okay, let's go. Nobody is ever yelled at and their response is, now that they've yelled at me, I see that
really
I'm
feel
wrong.
valued and uplifted.
I feel uplifted and encouraged, and I want to apologize now that they've yelled at me. You may apologize after somebody yells at you because you're afraid. That's called domination, and it's ugly. So proper tone and volume. You have a few days to prepare for that, to think about even your wording, because when you're arguing just
Off
when
the
you
hip.
come off from
Yeah.
the hip and you're just shooting it just nights will suck and days will be weird, and your text, it just throws it off. So that's one of the reasons why we do marriage meetup. Works in seasons. Other seasons, maybe you don't need to do it. Selena, I think you mentioned this. Times of transition, I wouldn't recommend it. If you're moving, I wouldn't recommend marriage meetup in that season. If, ladies, you're about to have a baby, not the best time to have marriage meetup. If you're coming out of baby just coming home, or a job change, or some real hard difficulties with a child or a parent, when emotions are very high, retrospectively, I'm just thinking about this now, not the best time to sit down and explain where you missed it and where you need to apologize.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think you really have to be in intimacy and in tune to your spouse to know, like, you know what, this may not be a good week to do this. And sometimes there were not a ton, but there were times where it was just logistics. It wasn't how you offended
That's
me.
a good point.
We just did logistics. Like we have 3 kids. Like there's a lot of moving pieces here. And so, or we are on the precipice of like moving or changing,
Yep.
you know, even if it's just moving houses in the same city or changing jobs or whatever, that it was, you know, you're going here in this direction, the carpooling situation and everything. And so we just needed to sit almost like a whiteboarding session. And that's what it became. And then we pushed some of the emotional stuff in marriage meetup with each other to the next one, to the next marriage meetup.
We are going to talk about, I think, next podcast, quarterly meeting for families,
Right.
which we have one coming up for us Sunday night with our kids. Yeah, that's good. Anything else to add? Because we're at a close. That's what we have for today.
Yeah, I would say in terms of kind of circling back to difficult conversations, I would just say on both parties, it can happen that sometimes that you think, I don't want to have this was me. I don't want to have this difficult conversation because it's difficult and it's going to add fuel to the flame. And so these critical conversations sometimes need to happen. And in that space where I was thinking, well, blessed are the peacekeepers, right? Well, no, sometimes in those situations, yes, blessed are the peacekeepers, but whose peace are you keeping? And so that's where I would encourage some, and I know you've done it too, just for the sake of peacekeeping, that it didn't necessarily keep my peace or your peace, but it's bringing peace in the synchronicity of each other.
Yeah.
And that's where we need to figure out, with a lot of good discernment, a lot of people surrounding us like a village to give us, you know, guidance in regards to having those critical conversations, because they are sometimes really needed.
Yeah. Dynamic emotional movement, constantly looking for how can you better the relationship? How can you enter into that space with your kids? How can you connect as a family? Dynamic. So good. This is my lovely wife, Selena. My name is Tom, and your calling is to love.